The Haunted Theater. Hello friends, welcome to the Horror Ghost Stories. The story begins. Here's a full-length 3-hour ghost story for the Haunted Theater, written as a continuous narrative filled with horror and suspense. The Harrington Theater had been abandoned for over a century, its once majestic facade now weathered and crumbling. The stories surrounding it were legendary. An inferno during its final performance had claimed the lives of the entire cast and audience. Local whispers spoke of shadows that danced in the broken windows and ghostly applause that echoed through its desolate halls. But for 5 friends, the decaying theater represented more than a haunted building. It was an opportunity. Alex, an ambitious filmmaker, had convinced the group to document the theater's dark history for a paranormal series. Alongside him were Julia, a struggling actress, her brother Chris, a historian with a sharp skeptical streak, Emma, a gifted psychic who was often dismissed for her abilities, and Max, their sound technician who joked about everything to mask his fear. They arrived at dusk, the fading sunlight casting long, jagged shadows across the theater's entrance. Inside, the air was heavy with dust and decay. The group's footsteps echoed ominously as they explored the cavernous interior. The stage, still adorned with the charred remnants of its final set, loomed in eerie silence. Emma paused near the orchestra pit, her face pale. "There's something here," she whispered, but Chris rolled his eyes and muttered, "It's just a draft." As they delved deeper, the group uncovered fragments of the theater's tragic past. Old playbills revealed that the final performance had been a production called The Eternal Encore, starring Evelyn Hale, a renowned actress whose beauty and talent were said to be unmatched. Legend claimed Evelyn had been obsessed with her role, so much so that she refused to leave the stage even after death. While exploring the dressing rooms, Alex discovered Evelyn's personal journal, hidden beneath a pile of rotting costumes. Its pages chronicled her descent into obsession, detailing how she had turned to dark rituals to ensure her immortality. Her final entry read, "The curtain must never rise again, for the cost would be too great." The cryptic warning unsettled Julia, but Alex dismissed it as dramatic flair. As night fell, the theater began to change. Faint whispers echoed from the upper balconies, and the sound of distant applause drifted through the air. Chris rationalized the noises, claiming they were caused by the wind, but Emma was visibly shaken. "We shouldn't be here," she warned. Her fear only grew when the group discovered an old spotlight that flickered to life, casting a pale beam onto the stage. There was no power in the building. Drawn to the eerie glow, the group gathered in the auditorium. Suddenly, the seats appeared to fill with shadowy figures, their faces indistinct. A chilling hush fell over the room as a spectral figure emerged on stage. It was Evelyn Hale, her translucent form shimmering in the dim light. She gazed out at the group, her voice echoing as she warned, "Leave this place. The curtain will fall, and none of you will escape." Despite her warning, Alex insisted on staying to capture more footage. The group reluctantly agreed, but their unease deepened as the theater seemed to awaken around them. Props moved on their own, ghostly music filled the air, and the temperature dropped sharply. Max, trying to lighten the mood, joked about Evelyn's big performance, but his humor faded when he heard faint whispers calling his name. Chris, determined to prove the hauntings were a hoax, ventured backstage alone. He entered the old dressing room and froze at the sight of the mirrors, which no longer reflected the present but instead showed the night of the fire. The figures in the mirrors turned to him, their faces twisted in agony. Before he could scream, the room erupted into flames, and his charred body was discovered moments later. Panic set in, and the group tried to leave, but the theater wouldn't let them. The doors slammed shut, and the halls twisted into an endless maze. Evelyn appeared again, her voice filled with sorrow. "You've awakened the ritual. The final performance must end." She raised her hands, and the shadows in the audience surged forward, their forms becoming more solid and menacing. One by one, the friends were picked off. Max was dragged into the orchestra pit by unseen hands, his screams swallowed by ghostly music. Julia was lured onto the stage, where she became trapped in an endless performance, her voice echoing in a macabre loop. Alex, desperate to capture the horror on film, was consumed by his own camera, his face frozen in terror on the playback. Emma, the last survivor, confronted Evelyn on the stage. The ghostly actress revealed the truth: the ritual Evelyn had performed was meant to bind her to the theater, but it had gone horribly wrong, trapping all who entered in an eternal loop of death and despair. Evelyn begged Emma to destroy the journal, the key to breaking the curse. But as Emma lit the pages on fire, the theater erupted in chaos. The walls cracked, and the screams of the damned filled the air. The spirits of the victims were released, their anguished faces fading into the darkness. Evelyn gave Emma a faint smile before vanishing into the ether. The theater collapsed around Emma, who barely escaped with her life. As dawn broke, Emma stood amidst the ruins, clutching the charred remnants of Evelyn's journal. The Harrington Theater was no more, but the echoes of its final performance lingered in her mind. She swore she could still hear faint applause as she walked away, the shadows of the past forever etched into her soul. The Harrington Theater stood like a forgotten sentinel at the edge of town, its grand Victorian facade cloaked in decay. Ivy snaked up the crumbling walls, and broken windows gaped like hollow eyes. For over a century, it had been abandoned, condemned after the infamous fire that claimed over 100 lives during its final performance. Locals avoided the site, warning of shadowy figures in the windows and ghostly music that played without a soul inside. But Alex, a young filmmaker with a taste for the macabre, saw it as an opportunity. "Think about it," he said to his friends as they gathered in his cramped apartment. "A haunted theater. A place with real death and tragedy. This documentary could put us on the map." His friends were a mixed bag of enthusiasm and reluctance. Julia, an aspiring actress, saw it as a way to showcase her talents on screen, even if she found the whole idea unsettling. Her brother Chris, a history buff and firm skeptic, agreed only to debunk the theater's supernatural reputation. Emma, a psychic with a gift she didn't always want, hesitated but eventually joined to keep her friends safe. Max, the sound technician, came along for the laughs, masking his nervousness with bad jokes. By the time they arrived, the sun was dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows across the theater's entrance. The air seemed heavier here, and Emma shivered as they pushed open the creaking double doors. Inside, the theater greeted them with the smell of mildew and charred wood. Dust motes floated in the dim light, and every footstep echoed as though the walls themselves were listening. "This place is a gold mine for spooky vibes," Alex said, his camera rolling. He panned across the peeling wallpaper, shattered chandeliers, and tattered velvet curtains that still hung limply from the stage. But even his enthusiasm couldn't mask the unease settling over the group. Emma lingered at the edge of the lobby, her brow furrowed. "It's watching us," she murmured. Chris scoffed. "What's it, the building ghosts aren't real, Emma?" Her retort died on her lips as a faint sound drifted through the theater, a single, echoing clap. Everyone froze. "Probably just the wind," Chris said, though his voice wavered. The group began their exploration, moving through the cavernous interior with flashlights and recording equipment. Chris delved into the archives they brought, recounting the theater's grim history. Built in 1878, the Harrington was supposed to be the crown jewel of the town, he explained, his voice bouncing off the empty walls. But it gained notoriety after the fire during the Eternal Encore, its final performance. They say the fire was so intense, the entire cast and audience were reduced to ash. Emma flinched. "There's something wrong with that name," she said. "The Eternal Encore, it feels." Dramatic Chris interrupted. "It was just a play. People love to make up stories about cursed things. But their discoveries painted a different picture." In the dressing rooms, Julia found old photographs of the cast. The lead actress, Evelyn Hale, stared out from every image, her beauty almost otherworldly. An inscription on the back of one photo read, "To the stage, my eternal love." Deeper in the storage area, Alex stumbled upon Evelyn's journal, hidden beneath a pile of burned props. The handwriting began elegantly but grew erratic, filled with cryptic passages about rituals, immortality, and the final curtain that must not rise. The last entry was chilling. "They think I burned with them, but I remain. The stage is mine. Forever." Emma begged them to leave after reading the journal, but Alex insisted on staying. "This is the story," he said, holding up his camera. "We can't walk away from this." As night descended, the theater began to shift. Faint whispers echoed from the balconies, and the temperature plummeted. When Julia stood on the stage, the sound of applause erupted from the empty seats. She jumped back, her flashlight trembling. "Who's there?" she shouted. There was no reply, but in the distance, a piano began to play a haunting melody. Emma's breath hitched. "It's starting. The theater doesn't want us to leave." Their fear turned to terror when the lights suddenly flickered on, bathing the stage in an unnatural glow. The orchestra pit filled with the sound of tuning instruments, though it was empty. Then, the audience seats seemed to shift, and shadowy figures appeared, their indistinct faces staring silently. A translucent figure materialized on the stage. It was Evelyn Hale. Her gown flowed as though caught in an invisible breeze, and her eyes glowed faintly. She extended a hand toward Julia. "Join me," Evelyn whispered, her voice echoing unnaturally. "The curtain must fall." The group fled, but the theater wouldn't let them go. Doors slammed shut, hallways twisted into impossible mazes, and the whispers turned to taunts. Chris became separated from the group and found himself in the old dressing room. The mirrors showed him surrounded by fire, ghostly faces pressing against the glass. He screamed as the flames seemed to leap out and consume him. When the others found him, his body was charred beyond recognition. Desperate to escape, the remaining friends confronted Evelyn on the stage. She revealed the truth: the Eternal Encore wasn't just a play, it was a ritual to bind her soul to the theater. When the fire interrupted the ritual, it left her trapped, along with the spirits of everyone who had died that night. Now, the theater needed new souls to complete the performance. Alex, driven mad by the horrors, insisted on filming everything, even as Max was dragged into the orchestra pit by shadowy hands. Julia, mesmerized by Evelyn's song, stepped onto the stage and began to perform, her voice rising in a haunting duet. Emma, clutching Evelyn's journal, realized it was the key to breaking the curse. She set the journal ablaze, ignoring Evelyn's screams of rage. The theater trembled, the spirits wailed, and the walls began to collapse. Emma barely escaped as the theater was consumed in flames, just as it had been a century ago. She stood among the ruins at dawn, shaken but alive. In the distance, she swore she heard faint applause. The end.